Hey guys, I want to talk about something today that is a little bit against the grain in the gun community. Um, Whether you are into guns for protection, for plinking, for hunting, um, there is a common misconception that you need to have a gun on you at all times. I'm not sure where that myth came from. It may have originated from GIs and veterans returning home and sort of, you know, always having been in that just sort of ready condition, always on alert, and then coming back and, the US has had plenty of political turmoil and movements over the years, and I think somehow, some way, it sort of became this idea in the minds of a lot of people that at any moment a shootout could occur, and you're a fool if you don't have a gun on you. Now, I want to say that I carry a gun on me most of the time when I'm out in public. But I don't feel naked without it either. And I would make the comparison the same way I would with coffee, alcohol, anything. If you need something that isn't basic, like food or water or shelter or, I don't know, the love of your family or whatever gets you through the day, something that is actually required and necessary, if you need something, if you truly need that to feel whole, then you're being used. You're not using it, right? So, and I'm guilty. I drink, it takes me 4 cups of coffee to get through the day, right? And without it, bleh. But, so we all have something like that. We all have our crutches, but I've tried to make guns not a crutch for me. I own plenty of guns. I love them. I love shooting them. I love talking about them. It's a fun. I like taking it apart, figuring out what makes it work, cleaning it, putting it back together. It's all very therapeutic for me. But you'll never. I don't feel naked or unprotected or vulnerable when I'm out in public if I don't happen to have one on me. And I know a lot of guys who, they throw the same tired phrase over and over again, and I get it. They're not wrong, but 22 on you is better than, and that's correct. Yeah, a 22 on you is more effective than the gun that's in your safe at home. But at the same time, what if you just don't need a gun? Let me speak. So I'm relatively young. I'm 26. I turned 27 this year, but I've lived in Seattle for over a decade, right? A lot of people who are not, who have never been to Seattle and maybe have seen Fox News or something, think that this place is a war zone. And they're scared of the city. There's nothing terrifying here. I've maybe had 3 or 4 brawls over the decade and a half I've lived here, and all involved alcohol and all involved some douchebag, and none of them required guns. And that's over a decade and a half, and that includes my college days. So, college kids get into scraps more often than adults do. So I wouldn't even really want to count that in the stats too much. Like I said, I most of the time do carry a gun on me. This is my Smith & Wesson 40 VE. It's a really old gun. I got it when I was 18, and it is just a fantastic gun for the price. I think I paid $200 for it, and I've taken good care of it, and it's nothing fancy. It's not any of the newer, models, or it's not a fancy gun, but I know it. I know how to shoot it. And I have a couple other guns in my rotation. This is just what I was wearing today on my bike ride. I just went for a 12-mile bike ride. So some good exercise on a Saturday. But again, guys and gals, excuse me, I just want to push back. When I'm going to the beach, you know, I don't want to be just staying near my bag and watching it the whole time, making sure that someone who shouldn't have a gun somehow gets their hands on my property and my gun. You know, I don't want to worry about that, especially if I'm going to go for a nice long swim on a hot day. So, you know, I'll leave my gun in my car, where maybe if something erupts, I can sprint to my car and get to it. I don't need a gun in me at all times. And there are some people who don't live in the city, and maybe you're in a really remote area, and you want that protection just in case some critter, or some very large critter, like a black bear, not a black bear, excuse me. I think the brown bears are more aggressive, right? Or a grizzly or something. I think Idaho is not too far from, you know, it's like a couple hours drive from me. I hear that they have grizzlies. You know, so, you know, depending on your circumstances, maybe having a gun on you at all times makes sense if you're in the middle of nowhere by yourself. But if you're if you live in a rural part of America and you know your neighbors, you probably don't need to have a gun on you when you go to get your paper. If your paper's on the street, you probably don't need a gun on you to go to church. I mean, if your pastor allows it, fine, but you probably don't. Most churches these days that I know of have their own security and stuff, right? You definitely don't need a gun on you if you plan on going drinking with your friends out in public, in a place where you might come across some douchebags that gets you all riled up, and one of your homies and things go south from there, and then all of a sudden someone pulls out a gun, and now you're separated from your family for a couple of years or much longer. You know, listen, there's always going to be edge cases. You know, you could give me you could probably tell me a couple examples of situations where you said, oh, you don't need to have a gun on you at all times, but you still kept one on you and it saved your life. Okay, that's great. We all take risks. Every time you get behind the wheel of a car, every time you step outside, a coconut could fall on your head. Even if you don't live in a tropical place, it's still possible. It could have fallen out of a plane. We all take risks. This is life. You get one chance, and you know, live it to your best. Live it to the best that you can. But one thing I want to say, again, is you shouldn't feel naked without this. You shouldn't need this to feel comfortable. You should be able to walk in your community without a gun and feel peaceful, happy, content. You know, you shouldn't have to always have a gun on you to sleep at night or to feel like you're not in danger. So that's my 2 cents as someone who hasn't grown up in the gun community. I think a lot of what I've learned from people, friends I've made, YouTube videos, online forums, a lot of it makes a lot of sense. Even things that at first I was like, you're gonna put a gun pointing at your dick? Yeah, appendix carry. Okay, great. That actually makes more sense the more you learn about it. Okay, awesome. There are a lot of things I learned along the way. But one of them that I do have to push back is this concept that you need to have a gun on you. If you have, again, if there are certain circumstances, you're in the middle of nowhere, maybe you have a Mexican gang who doesn't like you, and you have a bunch of enemies, or you are a cop and you put people behind bars and they know who you are. There are certain professions, certain circumstances where I could say, you know what, buddy, if I were you, I'd have a gun on me at all times as well. If you are the everyday civilian who doesn't have a bunch of enemies, doesn't have a cartel who's chasing you down, please feel free to go about your day and not always have a gun on you. That being said, I think we can all agree, having a bunch of good guys with guns around the place is always welcome. So that's my 2 cents. Have a lovely rest of your day.